get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what cause is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, there's nerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, lore, cars no hocus pocus. Cars, keys, they're never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The Bears nerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet.
Hey, it's Cars Keys, Season 1, Episode 3. Football, real football is back. I don't know about you guys, but I'm fucking excited. I am ready for a nap, but this gets me motivated. Cars and his stats makes me happy. Let's bring the man of the hour out. Let me change his background because he gets all crazy with that. I want to make him too mad.
You know I'm a diva. What can I say? Yeah. Oh.
Week 1, Cars. We had to shift some time here for the football fans. We talked a little bit. We said we'll move up the time so people don't get too pissed off with us. But fuck the Bills and fuck the Rams. It's all about the Chicago Bears with us, and I'm excited, man. I don't know.
It's here.
Yeah, you and I were talking a little bit pre-show about expectations and things that we've been through over the years, and to me, trying not to get ahead of myself, but this feels different. I've been trying to stay on the cautiously optimistic train, but to me, Coach Eberflus is making that very hard for me to be cautiously optimistic, and rather than turning to just sheer excitement, because I believe he gets it. And fundamental football, you can say what you want about the lack of talent. If you believe in your direction, you believe in the guy across from you, you have an exciting quarterback that can take a step, you can punch a team in the mouth that nobody thinks that you should beat. And I don't think it's a breaking news here. I picked Chicago to win week 1, and I think it can happen. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? I don't think so this year,
Right.
obviously.
Think is key, though.
Yeah, but when you, like I said, when you have a legitimate direction and a guy that is bought in, invested on both sides of the ball, it goes a long ways.
Well, and I think we see it on both sides. Like the Roquan interview today, or was it yesterday, where he's talking about turnovers, right? Like,
yeah,
you have
turnovers get you paid the big bucks, Cars. We've been saying that for how I need more, Quan. I need more of those.
And we've seen it. I know I always go back between the sports, but you look at like the old Bulls teams with Heinrich and Gordon and Luol, when they knocked off a big team, they weren't as talented, but they played together. They knew their roles. And I'm completely with you. The head coach has been extremely impressive in the way that he's kept everybody together, built momentum. They've gotten rid of people that aren't on the same page or aren't putting in the same amount of effort. So it's hard. I'm getting, if they win this game, I think I'm going to be so drunk on the orange and blue Kool-Aid. It's going to be quite a mess.
Yeah. And I mean, what better place to play in week 2, coming off a potential big one, right? Go up against your I own you rivals. And if I'm Flus, I'm putting that on every fucking locker. I own you. I'm putting that on every one. And I think that he's that type of guy. You know, I talked about, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the coaches show with Eberflus and Poles was on it, and they actually talked to Ted Phillips and George McCaskey. They were with Joniak and Thayer. And I brought this up last night on Keeping It 100, and it still resonates with me. Eberflus speaking, Joniak said, you know, you're going to be a defense that's going to be reliant on turnovers, and there's a lot of luck involved in that. Eberflus kind of shakes his head and he goes, yeah, there's some luck, but not much. You know, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, if you're hustling to the football, I fucking loved hearing that, because a lot of guys would just go along, you know, toe that company line. I'm not going to step over Joniak. Eberflus his hits philosophy is more important than the play-by-play guy of the Chicago Bears. You're not going to disrespect my guys and say that it's mainly luck. It's not, because I'm coaching these guys up. They're going to be regimented. They're going to hustle. And if they don't, they're going to be pretty close to you, Joniak, sitting in the stands, calling the game.
Well, I think the luck thing is two parts, right? The luck is falling on the ball or catching the tip, right? But the part that is not luck is the peanut punches, the tips, the being in the spaces, right? So you can't get lucky if you don't put in the work first. And I think that's when you listen to him and you know, Getsy's interviews the other day, and just they have this smug little thing to themselves where it's like, keep saying everything that you're saying.
Love it. Yeah.
Keep going, you know. And I keep hearing we're the worst team, we're going to have the worst record, and I'm not hearing boo about the New York Giants or the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Come talk to me, Dominique Foxworth. I'll debate your ass.
And I mean, you just look at it, and this team is like, they're all the attention. They are getting all the negative press right now. And if you look at the schedule, the first two teams, I think, are two of the more overrated teams in the NFC to date. So I think we talked about it last week. Would it be a shock if it was 2-0? Absolutely. But would it be like a major earth-shattering, what did Hub Arkish say, the greatest upset in NFL history?
Yeah, if the Bears went up to Lambeau week 2 and beat the Packers, it would be the greatest upset in NFL history. And thoughts out to Hub. I know he's dealing with a lot of medical issues, and I know for most of my life I haven't agreed with much of the info that Hub has shared or his stance on some Chicago Bears football stuff, but that's fine. But yeah, no, we do send our well wishes to the Arkish family and wish him all the best.
Even though he's completely wrong in the sense of, right, we just, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it is funny to see, right? Once you kind of get a couple winning seasons under your belt, or you get this myth of your persona, you kind of get inflated, or your team gets inflated. And we're seeing that a little bit here with the 49ers. We're seeing that with the Rodgers and the Packers. But I think this game is not the blowout loss that it seems that everybody is expecting this to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I listened to David Haw pick the San Francisco 49ers to go to the Super Bowl today. I'm like, what? What are you looking? I mean, looking at their team, okay, I can but you cannot bypass the Trey Lance factor in all of this, because Cars, when you were getting the content ready for this show, you're like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of, I hate to say it, but a lot of Trey Lance. And I put it in the description for the show. I'm like, we're going to talk about Trey Lance, and then we're done with that. We're going to talk about Trey Lance. And then when we're done with that, we're going to break down some Trey Lance, because when it comes to Chicago, it's all about the quarterback. But then in San Francisco, it's going to be because of Kyle Shanahan in the running game. No, you gave up 3 first-round draft picks to make a move for this kid. And yes, he hasn't played enough. So there is a huge unknown there. But Cars, there was plenty of red flags breaking down Trey Lance's college tape at North Dakota that gave us all pause here on TTNL Network.
There was stuff in the preseason. Again, if you remember the way that Justin was picked apart after the first preseason game, right? He can't make reads. If you guys have NFL Plus, and next time I'll have some video clips that we can get up, look back at that Houston Texans game. Trey Lance was terrible, was not reading the field well. He missed some throws because his mechanics were so terrible. There wasn't a peep about that in the national media. There wasn't a single thing where it felt like a week worth of Justin, right, and can't read a defense, can't process stuff. It's going to be the Trey Lance show. And I think that's why I'm leading into believing again that the Bears are going to win, because I just don't have a lot of faith in him right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's I think way too many people. I mean, we saw it unfold today, not to give Dominique Foxworth any more spotlight. It's just he's ignorant to just basic facts. You know what I mean? It's lazy analysis. It's
one person had it, and now everybody takes it and runs with it without any of their own analysis.
Yeah, it's like Justin Fields is a grinder, always working, and then Orlovsky's got to step into a pile of dog shit and say, I've talked to people that said, he's the last man in, he's the first one out, and there wasn't anybody saying that. And then, of course, Orlovsky's got to go out and apologize and all that stuff. But it's just, I still maintain that 85 to 90% of this understands the market size and the fan base of the Chicago Bears. It's not just, they're worldwide. There's Bears fans literally everywhere. There's Bears fans everywhere listening to and watching this show right now. And they know that we're primed and volatile and we're going to defend our Bears no matter what. And that's going to get them the attention that they crave and the clicks that they crave. But fuck talking about these guys. Let's get down to some keys and some trends and to some nerd stats here, Cars.
Let's do it. So let's get familiar a little bit with the 49ers of last year. So the difference here is the quarterback and the interior line, which we'll talk about. But what we have to remember is this is a team that is very focused on the run. They are a very rush-heavy team, whether that's quarterback. They'll cycle through multiple running backs throughout the game. And if George Kittle is out, that's going to really be a heavy emphasis. The passing yards is a little bit of a misnomer in the sense that so much of that is done yards after catch, right? San Francisco, as a timing-based offense, has been extremely good in that. But that was with a quarterback who was really good at getting the ball out on time, in space, and getting it out to folks. That is something that we're going to have to watch this week with the 49ers, because Trey Lance has struggled getting the ball out on time. Defense is a different story. That defense is a bit of a monster. It starts up front with Bosa and Armstead and Kinlaw, who they say is healthy for the first time. Right, they're going to be much more aggressive on the front. Their defensive backfield, though, Shane, is pretty questionable, right? Yeah. So, when you look at those numbers, again, as the season progresses, we'll replace last year's numbers with this year's and things like that. But it is interesting to say they're going to be the same team. There's been no coaching changes, same offensive guy, same defensive guy. Everything should overall look and feel the same way.
Where is your, obviously I think everybody knows that Kyle Shanahan's going to run the football, and then when he's done with that, he's going to run it again. And when he's done with that, he's going to run it again. But where is your confidence level in this Eberflus revamped defensive line? Because we all know with the 3 technique and how that's going to drive everything. And as good as Roquan Smith is, Cars, we still haven't seen Roquan in that wrecking ball weak side linebacker position, and he hasn't gotten the reps. And I'm not trying to pile on the guy. Roquan's never been the body beautiful type guy, and it's going to be reliant. He's going to be a huge factor if the Bears are to shut down this run game on Sunday.
Well, I'm going to throw this up real quick because I think it speaks to that.
Yep.
But the biggest thing for me here is those two guys front and
Yep.
center. And actually, it ended up being that their starting other guard is now the backup center this year.
Yep.
So all three of their interior guys are brand new and have not looked very good. So to me, really, the whole battle starts more with Justin, with Angelo Blackson,
Yep.
and with Armin. That's going to be kind of an extremely important portion. And if it looks anything like it did this preseason, again, if you look at the Texans game, that's a very similar defense to what we'll run. Obviously, the bodies are different, and they were causing havoc all through the middle. So you'll see a lot of Morrow in the middle blitzing. You'll see a lot of run blitzes out of Roquan as well. I'm not so concerned about that, especially with Kittle probably being out. With Kittle being there and be a little bit more afraid.
Sure.
But this seems to be like a game that they're going to go, we're going to stop the run and we're going to make Trey Lance beat us. And good luck.
We're scarred with basic football.
Oh,
you know
God.
what I mean? We're just going to make, because it's pretty simple, right? The blueprint is pretty simple. We'll put all the pressure on Trey Lance to make the plays, and previous regimes here would go, they would try to be one step ahead, and they would, let him sling it. He's going to make a mistake, right? We'll just let him dink and dunk all the way down the field. And, I don't know. I guess I'm still scarred by, like I said, the previous regimes, but no, I'm really excited, man, because this is legitimately what Eberflus has been preaching the entire time. And with his first presser, get your track shoes ready. And I said, they're so detailed with everything. They didn't say they wanted 5 guys at the ball. They didn't say they wanted 6. They want at least 7 at the ball.
Which is one more than the San Francisco's have 49ers have captains this year, right?
Yes, exactly. They didn't do that 7th. We know who finished in 7th place, right? But no, that's going to be a big part of it. And the next thing, I know this isn't a Cars Keys thing, but I just want to stay on this Eberflus for just a second. I want to see more than anything, and I know we've preached it here on this network, the accountability. If there's guys out there slacking and it's not because they're winded or gassed or anything like that, I want them out. I want the next man in there. And if you're doing your job, then guess what? You're going to play. I think that's critical, especially in game 1.
Well, and I think you're exactly right, Shane. And I think what's always been interesting about him is they'll look at the tape and they'll be like, well, based on your performance, you're a 15 snap guy. You're a 20 snap guy. And if you go and loaf on those 20 snap guys, you become quickly a 15. But if you go put maximum effort, you're going to be a 25, right? Like if you keep showing that you can do this. And the reason I bring that up is you're absolutely right. It's going to be way different in accountability inside the game. But everything that we've seen so far has screamed accountability throughout.
Absolutely.
And so I'm with you, but like, I'm back to the, they're going to be so fast and flying that I cannot control myself in the excitement for what that game is going to look like.
Oh, I'm starting to get, I've been trying to maintain composure with this, but it's every, hour that goes by, I'm like, man, Bears fans just as a whole, we've waited so long. I'm that first game of 2019 season with all of the hype, the 100th anniversary in Chicago versus Green Bay. They came out. It was a 3-and-out on the first series for Green Bay, and I believe the third down we sacked them. And every Bears fan around, they're like,
"That's it.
This is it.
It's our moment.
Let's go." And then it was all downhill from there. So yeah, we definitely. HL Priest is right, man. Let it out, Shane. You've earned it. We all have. Bears fans as a whole have. But what do you got here next for us, Cars?
So I think the next portion, we have a heavy emphasis on personnel usage, and so these are the numbers overall. With both Jimmy and Trey last season, What I will say is we saw a bit of an increase in the 21 numbers when Trey was in there.
Yeah.
So whereas Bears got a lot of flack for how vanilla and basic the offense looked. Hey, guess what? That's what
you're gonna see.
Shanahan runs. And
Yep.
for those of you that aren't familiar at home, Shanahan's dad and Kubiak are basically the fathers of this offense.
Yep.
LaFleur worked with Shanahan. His brother was first his Shanahan's offensive coordinator in San Francisco. Now is this offensive coordinator for the Jets. These guys run very much the same type of offense. The personnel usage will change.
Sure.
But vanilla is kind of the name of the game. Other than motion and bootlegs and things like that some people seem to think are super intricate, that offense is going to look and feel the same. The biggest difference for them is, especially with Kittle most likely out, you're probably going to see a lot more of Juszczyk, the fullback, than you would normally do. And so he's a guy you got to watch.
We'll throw that back up there, Cars. And just explain real quick, because for people, again, we want to just tell them what 11 and 12 and 21 and 22 is with your.
So 11 overall in the NFL is going to be the most common breakdown you see. That is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. So the first 2 numbers, the first number is always or what you could call the tens number, is always going to be how many running backs you have. The second number is going to be how many tight ends you have. So a 21, when you look at a 12, let's start there. Yeah, it's a 2 tight end set. Depending on how they are, they could be on the line, off the line, in the backfield, etc. 21 is going to be your common I formation type of situation, or offset I, or something along those lines. So that'll be the
non-Matt Nagy formation.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. And the 22 is when teams go super heavy. So that's your 2 tight ends, your 2 running backs. Those numbers for them and us should look pretty similar against aggressive defenses this week, especially with the weather, right? Both teams want to control the ball. Both teams want to basically chew up clock, wear defenses down with a run game, and then start to take advantage of a pass game. So, this is going to be a great fullback battle, the old Juszczyk versus Blazin game type of game, and we'll see how that plays out.
Juszczyk is a good monster. Football player, man. He really is.
He and the guy from Denver, whose name I forget right now, those 2 guys set the kind of the bar for what the fullback position to.
I can hear Phil screaming right now in my ear. Juszczyk was my guy when he came out. I remember. I do remember that, but yeah, you talk about the run and going up top. I know you got some. That's going to be, to let you guys behind the scenes a little bit. That's going to be one of the keys, and that's really, that has been Trey Lance to this point. It's a 72-yard touchdown, and it's a blown coverage, or the guy defender falls down. You see the guy running all alone. And I said, those are the things that are going to send Eberflus in orbit. If that stuff happens, it just, because this defense is really made to prevent those things. Exactly. Those type of plays up top. It's more of we're going to, rely on sound, fundamental football, run to the ball. And we feel like you're going to make a mistake at some point when we're giving you something up underneath all the way down the field. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different than Lovey, obviously, but still, you can't give up 50+ yard touchdowns over the top to a young quarterback that's wildly unproven, because that's not going to end well for Chicago.
And that's a funny part. Like when you watch that Houston game, one of the things they gave him so much credit for was when they won the Division II championship, and he's like, he only threw the ball 10 times.
10 times,
what a selfless quarterback. And you're like, that's probably not the greatest thing for a quarterback, but you're exactly right. I think, in an ideal situation, we always laugh at the old Mitch Trubisky game when he threw it 8 times.
Yeah.
I think San Francisco would
That
be.
was what, Carolina? Was that Carolina, wasn't it? Was that Carolina?
No, I thought that was Pittsburgh when it was.
Was it Pittsburgh? I can't remember. I try to push all of that shit out of
Absolutely,
my
as
head.
we should.
But yeah.
I think San Francisco would be more than content to let Lance pass like 10, 15 times
Sure.
and try to run the ball the whole way and carry him to a victory. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we.
But you just can't give up 144 yards on 2 of those passes and 2 touchdowns. Can't.
Exactly.
Can't do
Exactly. So we kind of talked about it earlier, but it is important to circle back, right? So when you look at these key losses, Mostert back there, they lost both their starting safety and their nickel quarterback. Jimmy Ward is on IR. He'll miss the first 4 games. Kittle looks to be out, especially since he's not practicing. And even with an injured groin, for any of you 40-year-old guys that cough too hard, and myself included, and pull that groin muscle, that's
of all the times for us to be putting in a solid surface on our field, right? We need dude's going to play, and then he won't slip and rip his groin apart again.
I mean, it's just terrible. We need to undo the grass there.
Yeah.
But so again, when you look at the 49ers, they're getting, believe some folks, or a lot of folks, have them as one of the top 10 teams in the NFL this season. And that's just with those losses and really no name additions to replace those guys, it doesn't look as good as it did last year. And they overcame a lot last year. I just don't know that I can absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know how you're getting into anybody. Like when Haas at San Francisco, I'm like, it's not even, to me, it's not even plot. I mean, unless Trey Lance just comes out and completely kicks the door down and everybody's like, holy shit, we didn't see
that
coming. But it's just, there's way too many flaws that I've seen to believe that he's going to be that dude. I mean, I would believe more that Jimmy would come in for an effective Trey Lance, and I still don't believe that they'd be going to the Super Bowl, but I would believe it more so with Jimmy than Trey Lance, because he's just such an unknown.
I'm kind of on that same boat with you. You know, when you heard me talk, they're one of the league leaders in yards after catch.
Yep.
So that's, you know, when you think about this kind of almost old school West Coast offense, you think a lot of slants, you think of getting guys out in space and getting the ball out to them so that they can make yards after the catch. This is not curls, right? As Phil loves to say. Jimmy is miles better on getting the ball out and on time to Trey. You know, one of the things we talked about early on with Justin is this was Justin's first timing-based offense, and he's made a big leap. It's the same for him, for Trey. And I don't think mechanically he's there. He's got a weird, and we'll talk about him in a second, but he's got a weird delivery. So that really impacts a lot of the timing on those things.
It slows down everything, his delivery. I mean, it's
massively.
I think it was it Ryan Cox that shared that one clip with us from the beginning of preseason. It was just, you're wondering how he even got it out there. And it's just, and that's the thing. We've talked about it with guys on here, Austin Carter Samuels, talking about, you got to the NFL with that. So he's a guy that doesn't want to touch that, because we talked about the Carson Wentz, the Justin Fields, things like that. I get it, but his is even more difficult than the Wentz and Fields chicken wing.
And his lower body is a bigger issue. When you see him, and again, you go back to that Houston game, there were a couple plays that he missed when he was on the move. If you remember the big play against Seattle where Justin came out, stopped, set himself, and threw that, there were a couple plays in that game where Trey could have done the same thing, and he kept on the move, and his legs were all over, and he missed wide open guys before that. So if we used to always say with Mitch, right, the barn door is swinging open when he would go to throw.
Yeah.
With him, he's like a whirling dervish almost with some of his leg work, and you're like, I have no idea how you expected to get that out into space. It's very weird to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we got next here?
Let's talk through a little bit about what we've seen in trends. So one of the things we've kind of lauded the Bears for is their lack of penalties throughout the preseason. 49ers have had 21 in the last 2 games alone.
Wow.
They've been extremely penalized. There have been a lot on the interior line. So when you look at that kind of in the way that that's progressing, that's going to be a big, it's one of the lesser known stats that people look at, but penalties are a big game changer. And it looks like San Francisco is problematic at best right now for that. Bigger issues in protecting the quarterback. And, we've hit on this a bit. They've had 3 sacks a game in the preseason with the 3 new starters. There's been a lot more pressure. They've put Lance on the move considerably more than they have, or what they would do with Jimmy. And part of that is his athleticism, but the other part is nothing kills an offense like interior pass rush. And teams are easily getting interior pass rush against this interior line. Can they stay healthy? The biggest thing from a Shanahan-based team has always been health. When they have stayed healthy, they have gone far. When they have not stayed healthy, they fall apart. And usually what happens after a deep playoff run with this team is we see the injuries start to stockpile. Trent Williams has been banged up all preseason. Kittle now, Jimmy. So how does that play in? Last year, when you look at their 10 wins, the best part about that is they beat both of the Super Bowl teams. But they were terrible. Their other wins were the Lions and Eagles when they were still bad. If you remember how the Eagles started off, it was slow and brutal to start and got better. They beat us, the Jags, the Seahawks, the Bengals. So a lot of bad teams they beat up on, which sometimes, when we talk about that strength of schedule stuff, it matters.
You got to beat who's in front of you at the end of the day.
Yes,
I mean, it's
absolutely. But they're a team that, interestingly enough, plays way better on the road than they do at home. So that is something that we just have to consider. I think the last 2 years, they're about 4 games or 5 games over 500 on the road.
I mean, Kyle Shanahan, for everything, we can't say that there's not a lot of drama around the San Francisco 49ers, because there is, but man, that 21 penalties in the last 2 games, that is 100% goes back to your coach, your staff holding players accountable. And that stuff usually, unless you see wholesale changes and some of these players get a holy shit moment, like I can't believe that guy got traded or this dude got released, unless there's a shot across their bow like that, a lot of times in season that stuff doesn't change dramatically. To me, that shows a little bit of a disconnect from the players to the coaching staff, maybe them. And seeing that stat now, Cars, it kind of buys into, well, we believed in a quarterback. Jimmy had his warts and was injured, but come on, man, would you have some reservations if the Chicago Bears players didn't vote Justin Fields in as one of the captains? It would have been a huge problem for me.
We joked about it, right? Because look at the other side of the coin. And I'm sorry to the Mitch people, but there's a big belief that at some point Kenny Pickett is going to be your starting quarterback in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh went the other route, though. They made sure and voted Mitch in as a captain. If quarterback is one of those positions that even if you're a dick, Jay Cutler was a captain and never probably really should have been for the way that he was viewed by many on the team. If your quarterback isn't one, it's a kind of a red flag, whether you want it to be or not.
Sure.
And when you make a big point that your quarterback was 7th and you didn't want to carry 7, but you've carried 7 the last 2 years.
Kind of points to you wanting Tom Brady and Mac Jones as your 2 quarterbacks, and they didn't let you have your guys, right?
Exactly. And I think, again, we keep hammering on this. the last couple of years, what's been the biggest problem for the Bears on offense? Inconsistency, penalties. What has set back the San Francisco 49ers this year? Penalties on offense. It's going to be outside of Trey Lance, the biggest limiter is going to be that. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to sit down and watch. If they start blowing up early, and you'll tell within
that's what I was
3 drives.
Yep. I was just going to say that, Cars, if the Bears come out and punch him in the mouth fucking early, you're going to see a steady decline on this team, because if they're not believing in the quarterback, and there's a disconnect between them and the coaching staff and the front office for saying, you guys invested all of this capital into a dude that we know isn't even the best quarterback on the roster. You know, he's got all the talent in the world, but he's still not the best quarterback on the roster. That's why you see 21 penalties in 2 games. 100% the reason.
And there shouldn't be shame in that. Trey Lance was supposed to be the guy that took longer to develop. His last year, he played all of 1 game because of COVID. They've all said he was supposed to be a 2 to 3 year guy. The rest of the team for the 49ers has been built to win now.
Yeah.
And you've got a quarterback that's built for probably more to be at his best next year. So it's a weird thing. I can't think of a single reason that they would bench Trey this week. Because
either. Yeah.
If they bench him this week, it's done. Like I don't know how you recover from that.
You don't.
Yeah. And so again, that sets up for some fun things for us. And I think, Shane, this kind of leads into that next portion, which the biggest question is Trey, even more so than Justin, and the things that we've kind of talked about. He's got an absolute cannon for an arm.
He does.
But he, to me, is a very much a Colin Kaepernick clone. He's got some really questionable accuracy. His mechanics break down when he's rushed. You see funky delivery, and part of the reason I call a lot of deep drops, if you remember when Drew Brees used to play, they used to do some deeper drops to kind of give him some throwing lanes to see over or through or between linemen. You see that a lot with Trey, and that's because he's got this kind of 3/4, almost half sidearm thing.
Yeah.
That if he was closer to the line would lead to a lot of batted balls, a lot of tipped things. It'd be really problematic. We talked a lot about the interior line questions, but he gets so much. If we switched, Shane, and I'd be interested in your take, if we swapped quarterbacks right now, how would Justin Fields be talked about in the preseason versus the way that Trey Lance would?
He would, oh my God, infinitely different. They would have him in the conversation with, this is the year where Justin Fields is going to take not that next step to respectability.
That Josh Allen leap.
Absolutely. Cars, we talked about it in the draft leading up to it. You know, we talked about San Francisco. We talked about the New York Jets. They're the 2 teams that fit, especially the Jets. To me, Justin Fields, New York was never going to be that atmosphere was never going to be too big for him.
No, ever.
San Francisco, they would have been a lot better off with Justin Fields 100%. And I said, that's half the reason I can't wait. And I've been excited because it is hard to digest as a Bears fan when, you know, analysts and national media are going out there and continually you can see their lazy analysis and they're, you know, going to win 2 games and stuff like that. But, you know, this young football, Eberflus needs to have that shit in these guys' lockers. Just like I said, when you're a young, motivated football team that is buying into this hits philosophy, that is just adding fuel to the fire. That's not going to get you 7 guys. That's going to get you 8 and 9 guys to the ball. Yeah. And Roquan Smith talked about it. Turnovers. Hey, turnovers get you that big check, right, guys? Go out there and do it, Roquan. Go out there and get your turnovers, man. Go take over. And it's just, no, man, I've never understood. I see there's some traits in Trey Lance to like what you said.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
arm strength is amazing, all of that stuff. But Cars, we broke it down here. I would, if he was the guy that had fallen in the draft, I believe you and I talked about that a few times, that we wouldn't have been shocked if that would have been the dude that dropped. And we're like, oh my God, it'd be fantastic if Justin Fields was the dude that dropped. But, thank God for San Francisco, for the Jets, for Detroit. That's enough.
Atlanta, Carolina, Denver.
Absolutely.
Like, thank you, everybody. No, I look at this game when we go back to that. Again, going back to basketball and the Jordan thing, right? Like, I want him to be like Jordan when we were going against the Phoenix Suns, right? It's like, I knew that Jerry Krause loved Dan Marley, said he's the best defender. I took that personally.
Yeah,
like,
that's all I needed.
That's what you want Justin to go through and do. Under no circumstance does winning a Division II football championship mean much of anything, especially in a championship game where you run the ball a lot and you throw the ball 10 times. It doesn't mean that you're destined for greatness. Is there all the physical traits? Yes. But if he remains what he was last year, a sub 60% or right around 60% completion percentage quarterback, that doesn't cut it in the NFL. This isn't the Elway years where you can have a cannon complete 55% of your passes and be a god. You have to be protecting the football. You have to be accurate. Those are two things that he's struggled with. And I don't see how that translates.
Yeah, and I just think it's the low-hanging fruit. Whoever was going to be, if Trevor Lawrence, all the hype that he had going number one, if he had fallen to Chicago, it wouldn't have been any different. They would have, they
ripped
wouldn't
him
have
apart.
They absolutely would have. But yeah, man, I don't know. What do you got? What do you got here next?
Let's talk about 3 key matchups that we've got to get through.
Yeah, these are big.
And you'll have to forgive me for the middle one, but I think it's there, right? Like we've 100%. Talked enough about this. This has to be the FU game, right? This has to be the game that he goes out and does it. But Shane, you and I were talking before the show, key matchup 1, I'm scared about Debo, but Ayuk is a guy who probably is not getting enough press as of right now.
Yep,
is most likely going to be the leader of receptions for this football team.
He is the type of guy he can be. You'll be like, how did he get? Yeah. That's the one thing. He can be open by 23 yards and he may drop the football, but he may have 2 75-yard touchdowns in the same game. Brandon Ayuk, I think, is going to take that next step this year. I mean, he's looked great. He's an explosive football player, but that's a hell of a 1-2 punch for any quarterback, let alone a second-year guy with the upside of a Trey Lance. There's no way in any other realm that's not number one for your matchups. That's going to be a hell of a test, Cars. You talk about a young, untested secondary. I know Jalen Johnson's been around for a bit, and we're expecting him to take that next step. But man, you remember, as good as the Bears defense was in 2005, explosive receivers, they just change things.
In a second.
You saw Steve Smith destroy Chicago in the 2005 playoff game. And I mean, to me, that 2005 defense was better than the 2006 defense, and he wrecked the game by himself. And Cars, if you're giving up a big play over the top, and this is like the 3rd time we've said it, so we can't stress it enough, you can't give these guys uncontested over the top touchdowns where it's going to give Trey Lance confidence. And then you look up and he's got 14 completions for the game, but 3 touchdowns, and out of those
320
touchdowns,
yards.
Yeah, exactly. Can't happen.
And that's, again, I think this also plays into, I don't have them on here, right? But this is really where you're happy to have kind of two center fielders in Eddie.
Oh
And
yeah,
this is a big game
Brisker.
for Eddie that
Yeah.
I'm shamefully not talking up enough in this one, and Brisker, because your deep coverage, especially again, if Kittle is out, the two tight ends behind him have combined in their career for 48 catches, right? So you're not going to be as concerned. You're really going to have to focus on those two guys. Trey versus Field, totally. I think we've beaten that dead horse enough. We've almost beaten that as much as Tevin Jenkins should be a left tackle, I think. So we can move on from that one.
Looking at my phone, see if it's lighting up yet.
Did I say that out loud? My bad. And then, Shane, you hit on this early, but really the Morrow Roquan pairing versus Elijah is going to be key, because we want to make this team as one-dimensional as possible. And if our interior guys are getting the penetration that we kind of expect or are hoping for, at least, it's really going to be up to those two guys to clean everything up. And that's going to mean one of those guys kind of taking blocks up from Juice, from one of the tight ends, so that the other guy can go make that play. Brisker, again, is going to play very heavily into that, because he's going to be used a lot as an in-the-box kind of safety. But that matchup, if you control Elijah, you control the game. I think that's extremely important to us. You got to stay disciplined. You have to know your gaps. And again, because of Flus and the staff, we know everybody's going to know their role, but now they've got to go out and execute it.
Yeah. Dan Weeder was talking about Jaquan Brisker. If there's any concern, if you think he's going to be ready to go, he said, I don't have confirmation on this, but all I'm going to tell you is Jaquan Brisker is playing on Sunday. So he said, all you got to do is look at that kid and see the smile on his face and know it. I mean, that's all part of this, man. Getting these young, motivated,
athletic
football players. Exactly. And that is unfortunately something that the Chicago Bears have lacked. You'd have Eddie back there, but then it would be, the elder statesman across from him at 32 years old.
Clinton Dix, and we're going to give him center field snaps instead. What?
Yeah, no, talking about your matchups, two more that I obviously could have seen on. I could have seen you putting Eddie on there. We talked about him last night. He's a guy, I know everybody's down on him. He's making a bunch of money, and it's a critical year for him. But Eddie, I've always been an Alabama fan, and he's always been a guy that needed to be coached up and coached hard, not the, laid back, BU, all of that. And this is exactly what you haven't heard too much about Eddie Jackson. And I think that that's a good thing. I think you have a motivated Eddie Jackson, had his coming to Jesus meeting with Eberflus, and him not really giving a fuck. Like, if you want to make your money, you're going to make the most of your money here, because if we cut your ass, you're not getting that anyplace else. And that stuff matters.
And we haven't seen any video. We haven't seen any videos of him saying, you don't get paid money to make tackles, right? We're not hearing any of that from him.
He hasn't been laying on the hood of his Bentley at a gas station down in Birmingham on an off day, making videos. But your athletic comment cars is also another key. The other key matchup that I would have considered in there too is Braxton Jones.
Yeah, and it should have been, but it was just such a layup. I think everybody knows that.
Absolutely.
That's the only reason. It is key to this game.
Yep.
And I knew 100%. We would talk about it. I did find it interesting.
Is there going to be any Bears fan not watching the very first snap, not going to be focused on Braxton Jones on the first snap of the game?
No, but I think, did you see the video clip where it was Stacey Dales who was like, the Bears look at Braxton as the ideal left tackle, basically, right? And so, that might not show up week one. And I thought Justin's answer was still my absolute favorite. Like, I hope you guys aren't expecting our guys to go out and win every snap against Nick Bosa, right? Yeah. Like, No. But can he pick himself? Can he win more than he loses? When he loses, can he erase that and put in a big snap the next play?
And we're not going to leave him on a fucking island every down. That's the next part. You know
again,
what I mean?
when you go, but when you go back to this, that's what it's going to look like, right? You're going to see 3 fullback and 2 tight ends out there chipping on him. You're going to see a lot of extra movement. You're going to see things where, hey, Justin is going to bootleg or depending on which side he is, right? He's going to roll out to the other side of the field. Ikubium is a solid defensive end, right? But he's a guy who's never had more than a 4.5 sacks. So you're gonna just move it away. So yeah, I think bated breath, that first snap, everyone is going to be staring at Braxton and no pressure, kid. No pressure.
And it would be so Bears for him to get beat on the first snap and give up a sack, and the entire nation's like, we told you, and just writing the kid, then that kid's career has been written. But
oh yeah.
What do you got next?
So I think last but not least, let's talk about cheesy name plug, but let's talk about Cars keys to the week 1 game. So couple of key ones. We'll start off first. 2 turnovers from Lance. So last year, the 49ers were 1-3 in games with multiple turnovers from the quarterback. If you look at that again, when you want to play ball control, you want to do those things. If you force turnovers and make them second guess that quarterback, it's extremely important. One of the things I'm very confident with, and again, when we talk about anti-Nagy, is you got to stick with the run.
Yep.
When you look at the numbers, San Francisco gave up about 130 yards more a game on the ground in losses versus wins. So if you stick with it and you keep hitting them, this team is going to get desperate. They're going to take chances. So that's a big portion. You mentioned this a second ago, Shane. You got to chip at those ends.
Critical.
Ironically, the 49ers were 5th in sacks last year. The Bears were 4th. We somehow have question marks all over our defensive line, whereas San Francisco is completely set and amazing. And I get it that Khalil Mack was out, is gone, but he also really didn't impact the sack numbers because of injury, like we were hoping. Control chunk plays.
Oh, this one's huge, man. It
Yes.
It can wreck 2 plays can wreck the game. It really can.
And we've seen that in all of our lives, right?
Yep.
But when you look at these big, deep chunk plays, especially in the passing game, which shame on me for not calling out that's where these numbers are coming from. In the passing game, the 49ers got some big chunks. If you look at the way that in his 2 sorry if you hear a child screaming, they've just gotten home. If you look
perfect
at those,
timing on the kickoff to the 2022 NFL season.
That's what she's cheering, I'm sure.
Oh.
When you look at Trey Lance's throws, he was 50% of his passes were short of 5 yards. 50% of his passes were over 10 yards, right? So they're going to do a lot short, and then they're going to take those shots deep.
Yep.
Those are going to be your turnover-worthy plays. Those are going to be the plays that you could make happen. And really, last but not least, this game doesn't define who you are necessarily for the entire season, but this is your building block game. This is a game that the national media has told us we're going to be 3-14. We're going to be trash. The 49ers are going to be in the Super Bowl. If you push and beat and keep performing, that sets the tone for the rest of the season. Even in a loss, if you play well enough, that sets a tone for the season. So if you keep doing this and you define these things, we've talked about turnovers, we've talked about all of these different portions. If you define who you are right now, it just bodes well for the way the season is going to go.
So here's a little breaking Chicago Bears news from friend of the network, Ryan Cox, just shared this with us, Cars, on our text thread. Ted Phillips they're currently at the meeting at, Hersey High School in Arlington Heights.
In Arlington Heights.
Yeah, Ted Phillips says a new stadium will be enclosed and the capacity, parking, and tailgating areas will all increase. The crowd starts cheering, and Ted says, I've never had as many claps in my life. So,
if he just announced he was retiring again, he would get more claps. But
that's, I know there's people fired up, and I not to go off what we were talking about, but I think it's important. It's a huge part of the future of this franchise. I know there's people out there that are going to be upset. The stadium being enclosed, to me, is I'm ready for the upgrade, the bear weather bullshit, that narrative of, restore the roar, bring back Ditka, duh Bears, all of that nonsense. It's time to turn the page on all of that. Let's build a big boy NFL stadium. Let's actually build this the right way along with this football team. And like I said to Chris Emma last night, if you're concerned about your surface that you're playing on to win you football games, you're not doing it the right way.
you nailed it though. I think the biggest thing is this whole bear weather mystique thing. I know Danahy was like, you got to understand, the Bears are 3-2 in temperatures where it's under 35 degrees and they're playing a warm weather team. Yeah, you're a game over 500. Guess what? That doesn't mean shit.
Thanks for that 5-game sample size and a multi-billion-dollar complex. That's going to be, it's nonsense. And Keyshawn Johnson went out and said, why do you want to take away your home field advantage? What home field advantage?
You got to have Tampa Bay went into Green Bay and beat them to go win a Super Bowl. You look at Green Bay has lost last year, I think, to another team. Green Bay has lost back-to-back playoff games at home against teams that don't necessarily play in cold weather, snowy stadiums. What matters is execution. If you're reliant that someone's going to be a little cold, news flash for you. Most of these guys are cold. Most of them come from Mississippi, Texas, Florida, Alabama, where they're warm weather guys.
Wallingford, Connecticut.
Yeah. It's not a thing anymore. Everybody's been playing in the cold. They're used to it. Get over it and just have a better team. Who cares?
Exactly. That's right. Cars, we've been through it all. And I said, when Jerry Angelo got here, they were drafting athletes, and that was what Lovey wanted. But they built a team of thoroughbreds, and they gave them a muddy track to perform on. Yeah. We've interviewed Akeem Hicks. We've interviewed Kyle Long. We've interviewed these guys playing on the surface. And yes, their only positive was, well, the surface sucks, but we would try to use it to our advantage. But that's their only option. That was their only option. And I'm excited to see, we talked to Chris Emma about it last night. I'm excited to see how this new surface holds up. And one more thing to get excited about with Eberflus, he took it upon himself and requested that, the surface be changed. Not only the surface be changed, but it be in a whole different type of surface, a different, what were they calling it? They went from Kentucky to
Kentucky bluegrass to Bermuda grass.
Yeah, Bermuda
and the way
grass.
that it was grown, the roots go sideways, so it locks in the soil better than going down. Like all this crazy science. No, I think, Shane, that's the best point to kind of close out with is when you look at the way that Ryan
7-0 Bills, they marched right down the
right
field.
down, beautiful. When you look at the way that Poles and Flus and Getsy and Alan Williams have completely taken control of this franchise, like you want to talk about putting your foot down and putting your stamp on this franchise. They have done this in the way they've constructed the roster, the way that they have built a scheme, and last but not least, the way that they're going to use the field and look at doing this. I can't believe that nobody else in the Bears has asked for this for the last 20 plus years, that it has been an absolute dog shit solution.
Cards,
But here we are.
It goes on to, everybody knows that listens to us knows the name Jim Larison. And I know Jim, we've shared this before, so I know he won't mind me sharing it again. But his son was down in the bowels of Soldier Field working an event and talking to some of the guys, and asked some of the guys down in the bowels of the stadium, do you guys ever get to talk to any of the players? He's like, nah, not really. We don't even really meet the coaches. We did meet Coach Tressman once, but that was because he got lost and didn't know where to go. So he asked us where to go. And he goes, but the new guy, Eberflus, took a day and he walked down here and walked to every single person that worked down in the bowels of the stadium and introduced himself and made that a priority. And I said, those are the little things that separate people in my book. When you say that everything matters, that, is it going to give you an extra win? No, but it's the way that you build a franchise the right way. It doesn't matter if it's the guy up top or if it's the guy cleaning the urinals down in the bowels of the stadium. You give them the respect that they all deserve. And our head coach right now is doing that. And that is something to get excited about. It's not an on-field product, but it speaks about the man that is controlling the on-field product.
I think that's the best way to put it. Like Tressman supposedly won the job because he had a Super Bowl victory parade planned. This guy has everything planned down to the field that we're going to play on.
Yep.
And he's not going to go plan for a Super Bowl parade because we haven't won shit yet. So he's going to sit down and do the stuff that matters that will get us to that point. And who knows? I think I've said this before. I thought he was going to be a guy that's going to be your turnaround coach, right? Your guy that comes in, fixes everything. But the more you see this and the more this plays out, the more likely that this is a guy that's here for the rebound and then still gets the rewards and gets to go on a win streak from that. So let's hope that that's the case, but it definitely feels a lot better.
Starts in 2 days, man. Or 3 days? Can't wait.
No,
but
I'm with you.
Saying that, I want to break a little bit of news here for this network.
Absolutely.
If you guys
it's small news too.
Yeah, it's just small news. If you guys didn't get to see Keeping It 100 last night, I'll show you a little promo. It's not of the show from last night, but after the promo ends, you will see who our guest is on Keeping It 100 next week.
Absolutely.
That guy, number 54, your first ballot Hall of Famer, Brian Urlacher, will be live in the TTNL studios talking Chicago Bears Week 1 with the crew. We will not be talking politics. I promise everybody.
That's a pretty big get. So well done to Mr. Mr. Bratcher on that one. But that is
shout out to Alan Bratcher. Yeah, dude killed it with securing that, and it's it's a huge step for us. I'm one of the like I said, we've interviewed a bunch of people, but getting Urlacher in here is it's a big one for us, and I'm looking forward to it because I want to get his thoughts. I know Brian will admittedly say he doesn't watch too much. He doesn't watch all Bears football. He's enjoyed his retired life as he should, but we'll get him in here. We'll loosen him up a little bit, and I think it should be a good one. So
that's
awesome. What it is, man. Yeah, I'm excited about that one, but hopefully we get to talk to him about the Bears coming off a big win in Week 1 because that'll make it that much more sweeter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm not, man. Cars has known me long enough. I'm not a dude that, there's some things that I know when I was going into meet my daughter for the first time. So I was a little nervous and anxious, but Cars and I were talking when we were doing the first Cars keys, like, dude, I didn't fucking sleep. Last night I was tossing and turning, and no, I'm not. I'm more excited, So definitely not nervous. I've been doing this a long time. We get excited about doing that stuff, and we've talked to a lot of people, but we haven't been able to talk to Brian yet, and we got a few more surprises up our sleeve for you TTNL fans. So can't wait to announce those. But now, Cars, is the time for you to be nervous, because this is the part of the show that you don't even know about, where I'm putting you under the spotlight, and you have to give me some of Cars' predictions for the Bears 2022 football season. So we're going to kick it off with Cars' Chicago Bears win total for 2022.
As you know, earlier when you guys asked me, I had 6-11. I have moved that north. I expect about an 8-9 season. So that is nice. 8 wins is my expectation for the year.
Yeah, I started off early at 7, and I'm maintaining it, but I'm not going to say that it's 7 with the arrow pointing up. All right, this one's going to be a little bit different. Biggest disappointment offensive player.
Khalil Herbert, I think, is going to be.
Alan Bratcher just got love from Cars. Cars just kicked him right square in the balls.
I think Ebner is going to take more of a role because of his use in the pass game. So it wouldn't shock me to see that by the end of the season that Ebner was more of your number 2 because of its more natural pass route running and what he could do in the run game. So Herbert
here's my wild card, and the guy that I know everybody is excited about. I still wouldn't have drafted him where they drafted him, and it's annoying me that he's nicked up and got the nagging injuries, and mine's Velus Jones.
I had limited not belief, but as you guys know, I'm a weird numbers guy. 3rd round wide receivers don't make tremendous impacts in the league their first season on average. So if you had told me that he was around 20-25 catches, that would have been okay. So I don't have big expectations for him.
Yep.
Because I have more expectations on Cole and Mooney stepping up. So, but that wouldn't shock me with the way that people have talked about him.
Yeah, it's just I'm very concerned about the guys that come into the league and are consistently nicked up. That doesn't get better in the NFL. Not that the kid's not talented. I'm speaking my honesty. I said it on the draft that night. That would have been my pick.
Look at Nick Bosa, the other side. He's been a tremendous player, but he was nicked up in college a little bit, and that's translated to the pros. So there's a lot to that.
All right, here's a question, but it's not going to be phrased perfectly. So, Cars, it's going to be Christmas, the week of Christmas, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to say to ourselves, wow, we were here and we have a fucking quarterback? Or are we still going to be like, there's a lot there to like, but I still don't know if that is the dude?
No, I think we know that he will be ascending at that point in time. You get to Christmas, right? You're talking about week. So you just played the Buffalo Bills.
In my perfect luck, the 2 games leading up to Christmas are the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. That's my family's teams, so it'll be a volatile time here in the Marsaw house. But do you think if I gave you $10,000 of Claudio the Barber's funds,
that
he's just got laying on tables all over his house,
If he's flying first class to Chicago, absolutely.
First class for
he must
Nicola.
be. Yeah.
Would you push the 10K to the middle of the table and say that he is going to be the guy?
Yeah.
Where's your okay?
Yeah, and it's some of what we've seen, but it's also if you guys haven't listened to the way that Getsy talks about him and his preparedness, and to push it even a step further, the way that he interviews after a game and can speak on everything, he's got one of those memories where he can see something and he won't make that mistake again. And despite what Orlovsky said, he is a first in, last out type of guy. So yeah, I don't know necessarily that he's going to be that 5,000 yard passer type of guy, but he's going to be that 4,000. He's going to be the one to throw 4,000 yards for the first time in franchise history. He's going to be your first 30 touchdown guy. And spoiler, 4,000 is probably not coming this year, but 30 touchdowns is probably coming this year, is the way I look at it. So
wow. So you would have been way over on we did the over unders with Brett last night. And I think the number was 22.5.
I'd be over.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, the use of 12 and the way that they're going to be and attack the red zone. Because I think Kmet and Mooney are going to throw up double-digit touchdown seasons.
My bold prediction last night was Cole Kmet versus San Francisco comes away with 2 touchdowns in week 1. And he had none last year. So
I think there's a good chance Cole Kmet leads this team in receptions this year. So I think that's a very real again, the way the offense is used and the way, people talk too much about how bad our wide receiver room is, but they don't give our tight end room enough credit.
Biggest disappointment on defense player?
Ooh. Man, that's a tough one. I think Robert Quinn is going to have a little bit of a bring back year. I don't think he's going to be terrible, but I don't, if he's somewhere between kind of 9, 10, 11 sacks as opposed to 15 plus is what I expect.
His over under last night with Brett that he got right straight from Vegas was 9.5, and I banged on the under.
Yeah, I would probably do that as well. I think in part that will pill up because I think Gibson and Muhammad are probably going to see a heck of a lot more looks as well. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he has the back. And I don't think necessarily it means that he's having a bad season. It's just that it's really hard to follow up a 15 plus sack season with another 15 plus sack season.
Real quick, before I move on to the next one, Bears fans, if you are watching this Buffalo Bills game, something to focus on is left guard Ryan Bates. Your leadership earmarked that guy to be a Chicago Bear and offered him a contract. So that's gonna let you behind the curtain a little bit and let you know what Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham want in an offensive lineman. So check out left guard Ryan Bates tonight when you are watching the game and keep that in mind. All right, Carr's biggest breakout player on the Chicago team, on the Chicago Bears football team, not quarterback.
Ooh.
I have a name, and I feel like you may think about it for a couple of seconds and then give the same name. I'll see if you're.
Is it on offense or you're saying anywhere?
This is the team. Yeah, the entire team. Biggest breakout player. Like, wow, where that dude came out of nowhere.
I probably guess it's going to have a different name, but I think Equanimous St. Brown is going to be that guy this year.
Chris Emma. That was his pick last night.
Yeah.
EQ. I was going to give the name on defense, Nick Morrow.
See, I have big expectations for him to begin.
I have the expectations, but I just think on the grand scheme, I don't think a lot of football fans even know who Nick Morrow is other than Raiders and Bears fans. I've watched a lot of this. His biggest flaw is not being able to stay healthy. Exactly. But man, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with Roquan, but I think that I think Sanborn that they brought in as
And
a kid
Weatherford.
I didn't mean Sanborn. I meant Weatherford that they brought in through the waiver wire, and Nick Morrow himself, if he can stay healthy. I think those are two players that they that they absolutely love. The other one that I want to ask you is, who leads the team in interceptions? We did this last night, and every one of us picked the same exact player.
Jaquan Brisker.
Yep, you picked the same one.
It was him or Gordon. I'm a big believer in these, and I know Jonathan Wood thinks it was a mistake to draft them, and that's why we have failed Justin Fields. But I would, in all seriousness, those two guys are probably going to go 1-2 in interceptions this year. That's the type of seasons that they need to have and are probably going to have.
All right, this one's going to fire up the masses and fire up a guy that we both know, but because I think I know, I don't know. I don't know that you'll go here. Biggest disappointment on the offensive line.
For me, it's going to be Larry Borum. I don't know. I hope to be wrong, because I just feel like that's the way he started out too slow to me. Yes, he's gotten better as games have gotten on, but it does make me worried. I don't think that Tevin is going to be that guy. I am worried that they aren't going to start him this week at guard.
I just don't get that, Cars. Phil and I talked about this offline today, and even with the entire situation, I mean, at the very least, sit. If you're going to start Sam, sit Luke and get Lucas Patrick and get him healthy. Same thing with Velus. If Velus Jones is not 100% when they put him out there, I don't want him out there. Get him. You can't mess with hamstrings. Get him healthy.
And I think it's more important to have these guys ready. Not that every game isn't important, but it's better to have a healthy offensive line for your division rival, because if you're going to do anything, you've got to control your division. Excuse me. So for me, that makes a lot more sense. Keep Patrick healthy. But Borum is it. I could see scenarios down the line where Tevin does kick over to right tackle, because it does seem that this team, and something we should keep an eye on, is a very big believer in Jatiri Carter long term. So I have more mixed expectations for Jenkins. I just don't have them yet for Larry. You can't tell me a thing that he does as a plus trait right now, and that gives me a little bit of concern.
The over-under for Demo for yards in Vegas was 925.
Over.
Yep, we all went there. FanDuel is 805.
So this goes back to the pundits and analysts that think that you and I joke about it all the time. There's very limited chance that Monty is here next year.
Yep.
But the Bears are going to get their money's worth out of that guy this year.
Said I think that's why he's the honorary captain in week 1, because he's going to be dragging his tongue on the field, walking off of it Sunday. Totally agree. So, I just wanted to throw those couple questions out there to you. I guess I could do it. Roquan Smith. I have two more. Roquan Smith, is he a Chicago Bear in 2023?
Yes, I think it's trending that way right now.
Long-term contract or franchise tag?
Franchise tag.
Yeah, that's what I said last night, and so did Chris Emma when I asked him. And my other one, and this is where we'll wrap it up so everybody can go watch some football. Robert Quinn, Thanksgiving. Is he a Chicago Bear, or is he on another football team?
I'm going to go he is on another football team. I think it goes back to the 8 and 9 thing. When you look at the roster, and if Gibson becomes the player that we think he is, if Muhammad, who I think, somewhat quietly, Muhammad had a fantastic preseason from snaps and activity. Yep. That would not shock me, but watch Dominique Robinson, who I think this franchise is more giddy than anyone else wants to admit. And so it would not shock me if they moved him to free up more snaps for him later on. It's nothing against him.
No,
you gotta
it's
stockpile.
where you are in this. If you don't want to say rebuild with this retooled
Reload.
Chris Emma said the same thing. But real quick, JJ, don't be upset about James Daniels. There's a lot of warts there that have played out in the preseason.
Steelers fans hate that move right now. He has not looked good whatsoever. I was with everybody. I was disappointed when they didn't re-sign him.
And most of that, you see the talent there, Cars, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of that always came down to age. You know what I mean? Him being so young, and you're assuming that he's going to take the next step and ascend. But Ryan Poles essentially came right out the fucking. He never offered him any type of deal.
Because you looked at it last season, he had that one play where he body slammed everybody. Like, okay, he's put it together, and then he fell apart right after. No, I'm like I said, like when Shane, I think you'll kind of agree. Outside of Justin, when you look at this, if the Bears get Braxton Jones right, if they got Dominique Robinson right, if their feelings on where Cole Kmet is going are right, and Mooney is right, if they're right on Brisker and Gordon, and there's a lot there to believe in across the board.
Yeah.
If Tevin Jenkins comes in and locks down your right guard, if Tyree Carter all of a sudden is looking like the can be the white hair replacement next year, or whatever, you have now set all these key positions, and now you're in a place where you're young for once as a Bears team. You're young on offense and young at the offensive line, which we have never been. And so if we could get all that done, that's a massive win. This is kind of that key to that season. This season is either going to be great because the potential lives up, or it's going to be brutal because the potential does not. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And it's going to come down to, do we have the right coaches and teachers, which it feels like we do, but we will see.
Yeah, man, I think it's a perfect place to wrap there. We're pushing 90 minutes. We are happy you guys showed out.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah. Click and subscribe, TTNL Network on YouTube. The way that we have this set up right now is it's going to be unlocked. Cars Keys is for the first 2 weeks of the NFL football season, and then it's going to be moving over to our TTNL Patreon. And if you want to sign up for that, join the Push to 1K. It's www.thetapeneverlies.com. It's going to be $7 for the month. You're going to have instant access to all past, present, and future TTNL content involving Cars Keys, Draft Mob, Masterclass with Coach O. We're going to have Eric Kramer. He is now on staff. He's going to be breaking down plays from Justin Fields for our patrons, X's with the O's. And we got a couple of other things that we're working on that we may end up debuting this season for our TTNL Network patrons. Go over there, check it out, try it out. If you don't like it, you're out $7, and it's no harm, no foul, but it's well worth the investment. And if there's patrons in the chat, I'm sure they will offer up the same sentiment. But thank you guys coming out with us, learning some Cars Keys. It's not all about tape every time, Cars. You have to have the stats, and then it's got to translate onto the field, and that's what makes this different look into the Chicago Bears very, very important. And I think it's going to be a big hit for TTNL Cars Keys. Looking at some numbers, verifying it on the tape. Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham are doing the same thing. So, all right, guys.
Thanks,
tell
everybody.
a friend, as Jackal says, tell a friend, let them know, TTNL Network. Go watch some football, guys. Have some fun. We love you. Brian Urlacher, TTNL, keeping it 100 next week. We'll see you then.